Welcome back. We're reading C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce, the story of a bus ride from hell to heaven. And last week we learned all about an Irish accent that does not exist because I am terrible with Irish accents. We're in chapter 9, and I'm going to continue embarrassing myself. Here we go. Moved by desire to change the subject, I asked why the solid people, since they were full of love, did not go down into hell to rescue the ghosts. Why were they content simply to meet them on the plain? One would have expected a more militant charity. He will understand that better, perhaps, before ye go, he said. In the meantime, I must tell ye, they have come further for the sake of the ghosts than ye can understand. Every one of us lives only to journey further and further into the mountains. Every one of us has interrupted that journey and retraced immeasurable distances to come down today on the mere chance of saving some ghosts. Of course, it is also joy to do so, but ye cannot blame us for that, and it would be no use to come further, even if it were possible. The sane would do no good if they made themselves mad to help a madman. But what of the poor ghosts who never get into the omnibus at all? Everyone wishes to do so, does. Never fear. There are only two kinds of people in the end. Those who say to God, Thy will be done, and those to whom God says in the end, Thy will be done. All that are on hell choose it. Without that self-choice, there could be no hell. No soul that seriously and constantly desires joy will ever miss it. Those who seek, find. To those who knock, it is opened. At this moment, we were suddenly interrupted by the thin voice of a ghost, talking at an enormous speed. Looking behind us, we saw the creature. It was addressing one of the solid people and was doing so too busily to notice us. Even now, then, the solid spirit tried to get in a word, but without success. The ghost's talk was like this. Oh, my dear, I've been such a dreadful time. I don't even know I ever got here at all. I was coming with Eleanor Stone, and we had arranged the whole thing. We were to meet at the corner of Sink Street, and it made it perfectly plain because I knew that she was like, and if I told her once, I told her 100 times I would not meet her outside a dreadful Marjorie Banks woman's house, not after the way she treated me. And there was one of the most dreadful things that had happened to me. I've been dying to tell you because I feel sure you'd tell me I acted rightly. No, wait a moment, dear. Till I have told you. I tried living with her when I first came, and it was all fixed up. She would do the cooking, and I was to look after the house, and I did think I was going to be comfortable after all I had been through, but she turned out to be so changed, absolutely selfish, and not a particle of sympathy for anyone but herself. And as I once said to her, I do not think I am entitled to a little consideration. You at least lived out your time, but I oughtn't to have been here for fear and years yet. But of course I'm forgetting, I was murdered, simply murdered, dear. The man should never have operated. I ought to be alive today, and they simply starved me in the dreadful nursing home, and no one ever came near me, and the shrill, monotonous whine died away as the speaker, still accompanied by the bright patients at her side, moved out of hearing. What troubles ye, son? Asked my teacher. I am troubled, sir, said I, because that unhappy creature doesn't seem to me to be the sort of soul that ought to be even in danger of damnation. She isn't wicked. She's only a silly, garrulous old woman who has got into a habit of grumbling, and one feels that a little kindness and rest and change would have put her all right. That is what she once was. That is maybe what she still is. If so, she certainly will be cured. But the whole question is whether she is now a grumbler. I should have thought there was no doubt about that. Aye, but ye must misunderstand me. The question is whether she is a grumbler or only a grumble. But if there is a real woman, even the least trace of one, still there inside the grumbling, it can be brought to life again. If there's one wee spark under all those ashes, we'll blow it till the whole pile is red and clear. But if there's nothing but ashes, we'll not go on blowing them in our own eyes forever. They must be swept up. But how can there be a grumble without a grumbler? The whole difficulty of understanding hell is that the thing to be understood is nearly nothing. But you'll have had experiences. It begins with grumbling mood, and yourself still distinct from it, perhaps criticizing it, and yourself in the dark hour may will that mood embrace it. Ye can repent and come out of it again, but there may come a day when you can do that no longer. And then there will be no you left to criticize the mood, nor even to enjoy it, but just to grumble itself a going on forever like a machine. But come, ye are here to watch and listen. Lean on my arm, and we will go for a little walk. I obeyed. To lean on the arm of someone older than myself was an experience that carried me back to childhood. And with this support, I found the going tolerable, so much so indeed that I flattered myself my feet were already growing more solid, until a glance at the poor transparent shapes convinced me that I owed all this ease to the strong arm of the teacher. Perhaps it was because of his presence that my other senses also appeared to be quickened. I noticed scents in the air which had hitherto escaped me, and the country put on new beauties. There was water everywhere, and tiny flowers quivering in the early breeze. Far off in the woods we saw the deer glancing past, and once a sleek panther came purring to my companion's side. We also saw many of the ghosts. I think the most pitiable was a female ghost. Her trouble was the very opposite of that which afflicted the other, the lady frightened by the unicorns. This one seemed quite unaware of her phantasmal appearance. More than one of the solid people tried to talk to her, and at first it was quite at a loss to understand her behavior to them. She appeared to be contorting her all but invisible face and writhing her smoke-like body in a quite meaningless fashion. At last I came to the conclusion, incredible as it seemed, that she supposed herself still capable of attracting them and was trying to do so. She was a thing that had become incapable of conceiving conversation save as a means to an end. If a corpse already liquid with decay had arisen from the coffin, smeared its gums with lipstick, and attempted a flirtation, the result could not have been more appalling. In the end she muttered, "Stupid creatures," and turned back to the bus. This put me in mind to ask my teacher what he thought of the affair with the unicorns. "It will maybe have succeeded," he said. "He will have divined that he meant to frighten her. Not that the fear itself would make her less a ghost, but if it took her mind a moment off of herself, there might in that moment be a chance. I've seen them saved so." We met several ghosts that had come so near to heaven only in order to tell the celestials about hell. Indeed, this is one of the commonest types. Others who had perhaps been, like myself, teachers of some kind, actually wanted to give lectures about it. They brought fat notebooks full of statistics and maps, and one of them a magic lantern. Some wanted to tell anecdotes of the notorious sinners of all ages whom they had met below. But the most part seemed to think that the mere fact of having contrived of themselves so much misery gave them kind of a superiority. "You have led a sheltered life," they bawled. "You don't know the seamy side. We'll tell you. We'll give you some hard facts." As if the tinge of heaven was with infernal images and colors had been the only purpose for which they came. All alike, so far as I could judge from my own exploration of the lower world, were wholly unreliable, and all equally incurious about the country in which they had arrived. They repelled every attempt to teach them, and when they found that nobody listened to them, they went back, one by one, to the bus. The curious wish to describe hell turned out, however, to be only the mildest form of desire very common among the ghosts, the desire to extend hell, to bring it bodily, if they could, into heaven. They were tub-thumping ghosts, who in thin, bat-like voices urged the blessed spirits to shake off their fetters, to escape from their imprisonment and happiness, to tear down the mountains with their hands, to seize heaven for their own. Hell offered her cooperation. They were planning ghosts who implored them to dam the river, cut down the trees, kill the animals, build a mountain railway, smooth out the horrible grass and moss and heather with asphalt. There were materialistic ghosts who informed the immortals that they were deluded. There was no life after death, and the whole country was a hallucination. There were ghosts, plain and simple, mere bogies, fully conscious of their own decay, who accepted the traditional role of the spectre and seemed to hope they would frighten someone. I had no idea the desire was possible, but my teacher reminded me that the pleasure of frightening is by no means unknown to Earth, and also of Tacitus's saying, "They terrify lest they should fear." When the debris of a decayed human soul finds itself crumbled into ghosthood and realizes, I myself am now that which all humanity has feared. I am just the cold churchyard shadow, the horrible thing which cannot be yet somehow is. Then to terrify others appears to it an escape from the doom of being a ghost, yet still fearing ghost, fearing even the ghost it is. For to be afraid of oneself is the last horror. And we're going to stop there in the middle of chapter 9, and we'll pick it up again next week.